What's going on, y'all? I'm going to do a tutorial of just regular maintenance on a 201TC. So that's your M-tronic version of Stihl's Pro top of the line climbing saw. Some things to look at when you own one. When it goes to the shop, here's what's going to get touched on. So these are a lot of these things you can do yourself and to be mindful when you clean your own. Bear with me through some of the ups and downs of this. This is actually going to be a little bit of a longer version. I'll try and work fast. I'm not going to edit anything, so you'll see this in real time and see how quick and easy this can be. All right, I've already given the saw a quick once over, and it came to me and said it's idling real fast and it won't idle down. What we had was a busted clutch spring, and it was dragging on the clutch drums. So basically there was resistance on the engine as it was trying to idle, and there's not enough power to idle, so M-tronic tries to keep it running, and what it started doing was elevating the idle speed just to keep it going. And I confirmed that. So let's at least start right there, and I'll show you how easy getting all this stuff done. These saws are not terribly difficult to work on. They can be a little frustrating at first, but the more you work on them, the easier they are. They're very serviceable. So let's get started. I use a Makita 12 volt, and this really doesn't have a crap ton of power, which is good, because you don't want to put a full-size impact on this. You can break a clutch spring or clutch shoe. So this is left-hand threaded, so we're going to tighten this to remove it. So that was clockwise, and you see it screws back on counterclockwise. And you can see, let me get you right in there, that clutch spring is not attached. Now the other thing you want to keep an eye on is as these, let me clean this up just a little bit. Typically you can get away with replacing the clutch springs one time. Don't ever fall into the idea that you can buy some aftermarket springs. There we go. So you can see in the very corner of, grab a little pointer here. Well, focus in. Right there, that's starting to egg shape just a little bit, right there. By the time this next set of clutch springs lets go, there'll be a significant gouge in this clutch shoe right here. And if you put new clutch springs in there, they're not going to keep the clutch tight in together like it's supposed to, because the spring's closer than it needs to be. That makes sense. I think I'm over analyzing this. Clutch springs are cheap. Bear in mind, this clutch is, as an assembly, is going to run you about 50 bucks. The clutch drum's going to run you about the same. This one's got some wear on it, but it's not too terribly bad. I also check the inside of that and make sure that it's smooth and straight across, and this clutch shoe will reflect the same thing. There's no ridges or valleys, so there's good contact surface, nice and flush, nice and flush. So the first one's already out. Put some glasses on for it. Go blind. You want to do these one at a time. Make sure you guys can see me here. I don't know if maybe we can get a little closer. All right, let's try that. All right, so there's our broken one. Probably have to get a little closer to the side of the table, about right there. Look, I'm a saw mechanic, not a videographer. So what I want to do is, and always pull away from you. So I'm going to push that one in right there. grab a tiny set of needle nose. You'll need bigger needle nose when you get to the larger clutches. This is the same replacement thing for your 461, your 661, 880s, and everything else. So I want to stretch this spring, get it over in there, and then just pop it down, make sure it's in there. Repeat. Don't take the whole clutch apart. You're going to make your life miserable. One at a time. Same process. Do it away from you. Hold the clutch shoe nice and steady. Roll that in there. Make sure it snaps. Same thing. And here's our last clutch spring. These are available at your local Stihl dealer. Don't buy aftermarket clutch springs. You know, it seems like it's something so simple, but the spring actually has a tension rate. There's a grade of metal, and then these are wound in such a fashion where these are actually set to like a certain tension level. So it holds these in nice and tight until about 3,200 RPMs, and then it starts to let go, and it comes out, grabs the outside of this drum, and drives your chain. All right, so there's your clutch spring replacement. While I'm doing this, I'll leave that down there. You can write down that part number. Here's one other thing to be conscious about. I'm gonna have to pick you up and do this again. We'll get a little light in here. So this right there is your worm gear. That worm gear's got notches in it that correspond to that star. So when you put it in, notice that right here, it's not all the way in, rotated around, and now it's flush up against there. So let's look at that. Boy, really tough to get the angle on that. But the star is in those nylon grooves. They're mated well. You want to make sure that is well intact before you bump your clutch back into place. So double checking, I'm in there, it's flush. Always, before you use any power tools, get that started so it's nice. Now, I'm going to reverse the drill. So I'm going to be going counterclockwise. And that's done. I do want to bring you in here. Here, let's back this off again. While you got your saw apart, I want to take this apart real quick and just show you. And this has nothing to do with the operator. It's just how these saws are. They catch all kinds of sawdust and they accumulate in here. So what you've got is all this oil and sawdust that's accumulated. This does not disperse heat. So we're actually going to, I'm going to flip this over, take the recoil off, we'll inspect it, see if there's any wear in there, and we're going to blow this out really well and get all that oil and grease off the cylinder. You'll end up with false readings because the engine's holding so much temperature, and the auto tune will tune around that. You will lose performance, and excessive heat is never anything good. So bear with me, I'll try and work quick. The other good thing about this light duty impact is everything you screw into on a chainsaw is either plastic or magnesium. neither one of them can take a whole lot of torque, so you need to be pretty gentle. Like just snug is excellent for how tight you want to get these. So let's take a look inside and let's see what we got. And again, like I said, these hold a tremendous amount of dust and grime. You got to take these saws apart on a regular basis. And you know, obviously we haven't taken this down too terribly far. If you don't want to take the clutch off, you got, you know, you've got this one piece right here. You know, if the clutch is on there, you can just take this one small section out, and you can get enough compressed air in here to get you enough access to knock some of that ugly off. They've started to change the way they make these rubbers. I believe this is the exact same part number on the 200s, and these oil lines right here that come out of the oil tank on the 201s tend to crack right here, and I don't know if it's come, you know, from the heat or what, or they've changed the grade of rubber that's used. That sometimes splits and you'll have oil leaking out. Most of the time there's an oil leak on one of these saws, it's typically geared towards this godforsaken oil cap. Once the O-ring swells, it doesn't hold oil too terribly well. Nothing fancy here, just gonna throw some compressed air at it and let's knock the ugly off of this. Alright, before I get my OCD on too terribly bad, you can take some more time to do this. I'm not going to make this any longer, but just a little bit of compressed air goes a long way. Now I missed a spot here. Least favorite part of my job, cleaning out these saws. Keep some glasses on. I got glasses. You only got one set of eyes. And I'm 54 years old, and well, they ain't what they used to be. I can't take any more eye loss. This rope's pretty frayed, and if you climb, I don't have to tell you about keeping the quality of your ropes good. So let's try and do this. So I've got some fraying there, and just in general, I mean, this rope's given most of what it can do. Now, this is, don't overthink this too hard. I want you to pull the rope all the way out, reach in there with a small screwdriver, pull this out. I'm holding, I mean, this is under pressure. The end of that's off. There. Underneath here, these mini Elasto start handles have got some extra parts in here. Make sure you, if it comes out like that, then don't mess with it, you know. But when you take this out, inside there's a couple of washers and a spring, and they go in sequence. Okay, spring's still in there, and there's that little washer in the end. Leave that all nice and tidy in there. Using the right size rope really is important. Melt the end of it. You don't have to go crazy. I just don't want it to fray, because we're actually going to tuck the bottom side of that in. Make sure your rope's laying on the table and there's no tension on it. If it's hanging off, you're trying to do a light operation here. And right there is the hole where the rope goes in, and there's a corresponding slot right in there. So we just want to push this in nice and gentle, grab some needle nose, push it up through. All you'll need on this end is just a simple overhand knot. Try and turn that around. Leave a little bit of tag end on here, tighten it down. Now what I want to do is, when I get down close, drop your tag end inside. That will keep it from unfraying. Make sure that's good and tight, or guten tight if you're German. The length of the rope is important. You'll hear a lot of guys talk about that. And the size of the rope. And I'll show you why. So right there, that little triangle piece, it helps stair stack the rope when it goes back on the recoil. If it's too small, it won't stair stack. If it's too big, it won't stair stack. All right. So we're just going to feed this through. No fancy knot on this either, because it has to sit in that small cup right there. I got a little too much rope here. I'm going to shorten it up just a little bit. There's that. That. Flatten that off. Don't touch. It's hot. See, that's how that spring works in there. Now, let's replace this cap. It just snaps in. There is a locator right there. Make sure you hear a positive snap. All right. Pull your rope out. Let's try 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds as just a guess. And let's see. It's kind of floppy. Let's do, so I'm pulling this out. Let's go. Come here, you. One more round. That's nice and positive. Now what I want to see, when I pull this all the way out, see the knot? I don't want to see the knot over there. You never want to bottom the spring out. You will break it. So just tight enough, just the right amount of rope. Everything's stair stacked. All right. Let's get back up here. This won't lay in there just flat. You'll have to lift this end up and drop that in. You got 4 screws. These are the longer M4s. They go in the front. They're going into magnesium. These coarse, small-headed screws go into the gas tank. Neither one of these can take a lot of torque. You will strip these out. Something is so easy. So I'm using my impact, but I'm going to go back, and that's just barely snug. So I want to go back and hand tighten these. Make sure when you start this, you want to go back into the same plastic threads that these made the first time they went into the tank. So if you're having to wrench down on it, and again, just snug, don't crank on these. You will strip them. Air filters. Let go. All right. Here's a great something. A 201TC and a 201T run different air filters. You see how that's been wallered out? For whatever geometry, even though these are still both current model saws, a 201TC will have a larger opening right here, and that one has a more recessed and narrowed down. I change the air filters when they start to get fuzzy. When they get fuzzy, that means the felt's starting to deteriorate. You can clean these, but they'll grab more stuff just because the hair of the felt is all out there. You can see how much has been getting by. Clean that up. Get that back in there. Another heads up too, you'll notice this is the proper air filter cover. The 201T and the TC, these have a different stud and a different knob. You got to make sure you get a TC for a TC and a T for a T. It's so close, but it's a mile off. Without breaking something, you're not going to get it back in. Clean up these parts a little bit, just blow them off. So we're not putting more dirt and dust. Back into a clean saw. Hope y'all are enjoying this. I'm trying to do a little bit more than just, this is mostly what I do all day. Doing some performance work to a saw. It's a nice change of pace. But by no means is this, make sure you guys can actually see me. Yeah, there we go. Roll these back in, and again, just nice and easy. And especially, these are the shorter M4 screws. So you have less thread contact, which means you can't put as much on here as you want to. Just snug and a little bit. All right. I'm going to clean the surface of the crankshaft right here, because what I don't want is any grit on this needle bearing. And the cage is made out of some hard plastic nylon. And this never gets oil. It gets a little bit of just slung off bar oil. But when you have that off, just go ahead and throw a little dab of grease on there. I use 30 weight. Again, set that down until it falls into place. It's making good contact with that nylon gear. If you don't do that and then drive this clutch on there, you will damage the crankcase seal. And then it is time for some real repairs. All right, reverse. That's on nice and snug. Spark plugs. Stihl recommends fresh fuel filters and fresh spark plugs twice a year when you're using these daily. I'd say a climbing saw is the most high hour saw out there, unless you're just commercially falling. But climbing saws get a crap ton of hours, starts and run time. Just the nature of how they're used. I've already looked at the fuel filter on this one. This is good. It has the newer updated orange body. That doesn't look horrible, but they say with the light electrical system that this has, I'm going to re-gap this just a touch. And I mean just ever so slightly. If it creates resistance, it will hinder the operation of the M-tronic software. These are $4. Twice a year. It ain't gonna hurt you. Now, all right, here's something you don't know unless you know. Let's put these side by side, and I want you to look at the base of the threads. And here we go. That crush washer, see how tall and proud that one is compared to that one. That one's been flattened out. That's there. It's a nice soft metal to make a perfect seal, metal to metal, on the top of the cylinder where this goes in. So what you'll end up with is, you know, throw this back in there until it's finger tight, and then you'll start to feel some resistance. You know, and that's just one finger. It's not getting tight. You're going to be about 3/4 of a turn before there. It finally stopped. You know, I can probably turn it more, but it's done what it's supposed to do. That 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn, usually it's closer to 3/4 of a turn, to compress that and make sure you've got a good seal. I've actually seen more threads ruined in the top of the cylinder by a spark plug that backed out because that crush washer wasn't seated and the vibrations caused it to back out, rattle around, and booger up those threads. All right. So that's that in a nutshell. Here's another thing. This one's not that bad. You run these saws enough and they're going to collect dust. We never had this problem on 200s, but in there you end up with a crap ton. Now, you know, supposedly some of this stuff comes out this little hole right here, but I can blow compressed air in here and all around this. If I kick the brake off, it relieves the spring a little bit. You're never going to get all that out, and you'll see when I take this one off. These get packed so tight, there's enough room for all this sawdust and crap to get in there. There's not enough for it to get out. So you're going to have to take this side cover off. And the first time you do it, it's snapped in there pretty tight, so it's going to be a bear. You'll have to go firmly gentle to get it off. Let me clean this up just a little bit. But it will get so packed in there that the operation of the chain brake takes a lot of effort. All right, this is your T20 screws. These are smaller than your standard torque screw on all the Stihl saws and now the newer Huskies. All right. Use whatever you can. You want to get this started. There's a lip right there that this dust shield has to come off of, and it's snapped into place. Whoops, let me turn up in here. So I've got this side loose. I'm gonna have to pop it out right here and then make sure we go over that tab right there. Usually a smaller screwdriver than a scrunch is needed. These are pretty handy. They just seem to give them away at they're 10 cents at my Stihl dealer. There's gobs of them. Just don't get all ham-handed. I know you want to. Just keep working it and it'll come loose. All right, I'm gonna bring you in here now. Throw a little light at this. Actually, I think that's enough. You know, and it's everywhere, man. And this one, I mean, the brake actually functions pretty well, but you're gonna have to do this once a month, once every other month. This is part of regular maintenance because it will actually get to the point where the brake won't even engage. It gets packed in there. And blowing compressed air at it without removing this dust shield is not going to get you. It's not going to get hardly anything out of there. So once you realize how much it gets packed in there, this makes perfect sense. But you don't know unless you know. Alright, there's that. Reciprocating side. this isn't got to be hospital clean, but that's a remarkable difference. Now all these pieces can move and operate as they're supposed to without being bound up on compacted sawdust chips. All right, I'm at the 30-minute mark. This is going to take forever to upload with my average internet service. So I'm going to stop at this point, and when we come back, I'm going to hook it up to the MDG and my laptop, a fancy $800 Stihl tool, and we'll actually do the electrical diagnostics on it and run it through some tests and make sure everything's good before it goes back to the customer. Thanks for hanging in with me. I hope you're here at the end, and I hope this was beneficial. Tried to move along as quickly as I could, but these are all regular occurring issues. This isn't, it's not like this is abused or neglected. This is just regular wear and tear. That saw is probably a year and a half old, and maybe some of this stuff's been done in the past, maybe it hasn't. But regardless, see you on the next one.